Hi, this is Scott Amyx, and I'm joined by David Snider, CEO of Harness Wealth. Welcome, David.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
All right. So, you used to be that holistic wealth management and private banking used to be for ultra high net worth clients and family offices. So it sounds like what you're trying to do is bring those capabilities more down market to the mass affluence and a little bit of the affluence and a kind of a robo wealth management approach. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly is Harness Wealth?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you did a really nice job summarizing the platform in that we did a lot of research before launching around what the ultra billionaire market was doing in terms of the family office model, and really felt like there was an opportunity to use technology to deliver that same experience to millions of US households where people have been more focused on their professional success than on optimizing their financial balance sheet. And what we found is that the key to success really lies in the combination of not just financial planning, but financial planning, tax, and estate planning, and the best of both technology, insights, and visualization, but with best-in-class advisors that know what they're doing. So the big differentiator for us is, one, being much more holistic in approach, and two, actually embracing the best advisors across these verticals, those that are recognized by their own industries as being the best, to be the ones that help people reach their best financial future.
Yeah, I think one of the key nomenclature that I picked up on is this notion of holistic needs. And when you think about robo-advisors, at least the way it's currently defined, it's really primarily an automated asset allocation tool with some auto rebalancing and dollar cost averaging. Mm-hmm. Here, you're really trying to provide more of a team approach. So I wanted to just kind of better understand a little bit more. It seems like the business model has a couple of dimensions. One dimension, of course, is that you guys are kind of a single version of truth where all the client data resides. So I'd love to know more about kind of the tool capability in terms of kind of the traditional wealth management platform capabilities, but also the fact that you are also kind of this lead gen platform, much like Angie's List, but for financial advisors, tax experts, and estate planners. So if you could just kind of break that down a little bit, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, so I've always been a little bit skeptical of people marketplaces in terms of, are these really the best people out there, or is this someone who's most excited about me as a potential client? And what attracted me to this segment is that because of generational wealth transfer, because of changes in the operating practices for many of these businesses, even the top decile in these spaces really had the desire really for two things. One, to reach a next generation client, which really is the 30 to 50-year-old that we focus on. And two, to be able to provide them with better technology, less duplication, more insight. So that's really been the North Star of the way that we've developed technology, which is how do we use insights to help people identify what they should be doing? Not all of these advisor types make sense for everyone, but going through a process where we surface what are the key insights, and then allow people to integrate information once, not repeatedly, and over time for the information provided to help the advisors actually serve you better. So that if there's a significant change in your personal balance sheet, you ought to have sort of real-time alerting to your tax advisor so he or she can help you to get the best advice based on what's actually happening in real time, versus what happened today is a very siloed approach where people tend not to get the best advice because they don't know when to seek it out, and those advisors don't know what's happening.
So I just want to make sure I understand. You guys are doing more than just capturing input data in terms of assets, income, liabilities, and so some of these things. Or are you actually doing computation as well, so that you essentially have modules like retirement planning, estate planning, life insurance, and tax minimization, or it's primarily inputs, and then the various specialists then take that input and then plug it into their respective tools and crunch it back and then provide guidance?
It's a combination. I mean, we want to give people better insights into the opportunities that they have. And so that includes things like net worth benchmarking, where you can see how does your wealth stack up relative to peers? How does the composition of your balance sheet look relative to a comparison set? What are some of the things that from that analysis we think one could optimize or do better? There's an opportunity planning process where we'll identify the potential value of some of the highest the most interesting opportunities that you may have to capture through that process. And again, we're just in the early innings of what we're building. I mean, there's a huge amount that we believe that we can do given the best-in-class product and engineering team. And so we're just scratching the surface on what the process that we're building can unlock for people and their benefit.
So one of the things that you mentioned is that you try to bring the best of the breed. So is there kind of a review or rating mechanism on some of these advisors and let's call them team members? Mm-hmm. And how do you first vet them out before they even come onto the platform? And then how do you, on an ongoing basis, measure their metrics, their performance?
Absolutely. So yeah, the quality and discernment of who we wanted to partner with was paramount. And so out of the gate, we developed an advisory council that includes CEOs of some of the largest investment firms, former head of the IRS, people that have run billion-dollar family offices, to help us in that process of coming up with about 140 different attributes that we screen our advisors on. So there's a very high bar in terms of those that we feel confident having on the platform. And then we'll passively, as we collect information from a potential client, identify a smaller subset of advisors that we think make sense for him or her. We'll then ask for client input in terms of, do you have preferences around the geography of your advisor, the gender, the age, any number of different factors. And then lastly, there's an ongoing feedback process. So amazingly, in financial services, there's actually very few, if any, platforms where down the road if there's been a material change in the provider serving you, or other clients have had bad experiences. We're constantly capturing that information to make sure that on an ongoing basis we have the best advisors to serve our clients.
Yeah. Now, in terms of data automation, you guys are integrated with the things like Yodlee and other things. So essentially, you guys are pulling in things like Mint type of data as well as even their brokerage data. So it's automatically populated and reflected so that the advisors can understand exactly at any given point what their situation is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer. So I spent almost 5 years helping to build a company in the real estate space called Compass, which was also a tech-enabled services platform, really trying to combine the best of advisors with technology. And what we found is if great technology exists, there's no reason to duplicate it. So there are a number of different point solutions that we've integrated with significant overlays on top. And we're very fortunate that our director of engineering spent 10 years building equity algorithms at Goldman Sachs. Our head of product has spent 15 years in financial services, most recently as the head of product at Adipar, the leading wealth technology data business. And so we're very focused on where we see there is a need for end-to-end innovation and where there are places where we can leverage the best of what's out there.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about financial planning. Again, I think you guys are calling it more kind of wealth management, but in financial planning or any aspects of planning, people generally don't like to plan. I mean, that's at least been my experience, is that planning is right up there with doing taxes. It's unless they either have too much money or they're really, are trying to minimize a lot of taxes, or there's something that's happening, they prefer not to do planning. So how do you actually get people engaged onto the platform where they want to actually utilize these services? And then the other factor is there is kind of this, moving changes, legislative changes around estate planning tax. Depending on I think your average account size is 1.5 million. Most of them will not necessarily really have huge issues around estate planning. So how do you create those urgencies and make sure they're looking at it more holistically?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. There's a really interesting set of sort of psychology work that we've done around what are the right times to be reaching people to get them thinking about stuff that really is in their best interest to engage with, at least episodically, if not thinking about it on a more ongoing basis. And so we've done that through some of the more targeted digital outreach. We've done that through some of the partnerships that we have, whether it's a life stage moment platform or it's a platform tied to secondary liquidity for technology employees. There's a lot of thought that we put into how do we become and stay top of mind at those inflection points where people really want to engage in these topics. And then also how to continue to provide insights to people. I mean, I think the one of the most important emotions or feelings in the space to get action is the FOMO mentality of, there is money on the floor that my friends are picking up that I've missed because I'm not strategically giving to charity in the right ways, because I'm not putting the right assets in the right accounts, because I'm not, doing the things that take care of my family if something were to happen. And so, we're big believers in creating really thoughtful but approachable content, having interactive tools that surfaces the quantum of opportunity that people may be leaving on the sidelines. Because I think when people hear, yes, I should be doing financial planning, retirement feels very far off. And I think trying to make it as tactile as possible, that these 3 steps and things that you're not doing could translate into $200,000 of opportunity, that makes it feel much more real.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think to your point about stages and life triggers is that, and you also reference, Gen X as well, is that there is, we're kind of in an interesting time period where I think already there's been intergenerational wealth transfer to the millennials that's happening. But now we're also starting to see some of that trickle into Gen X as well. Mm-hmm. And certainly for Gen X, they probably don't have any type of working relationship with their parents as financial advisors or the institutions that they've had. They're looking for new experiences that's both digital and virtual, in the sense of virtual relationships with these types of members. Tell us about Gen X mindset, and how are you reaching out to them? And is it too early? And what is that key selling point?
Yeah, so it's certainly never too early. We ran a survey of 1,000 Gen X households and found that almost 3/4 feel that they have moderate to significant complexity when it comes to their own financial planning. And not surprisingly, about 80% feel significant anxiety around that topic. And so, again, as we mentioned before, sort of the key is, how do you deliver insights that make the action plan reasonable, quantifiable, understandable? And I think for this group, tech-enabled, where you can begin a process of learning online, doesn't have to begin with a phone call to someone who you're worried may talk down to you if you don't know the answer to something. And so that bridge of tech and information accessibility, but knowing that there is on the other end the people that have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 plus years and really understand the specifics of, I'm a person who just made partner at a law firm in Chicago with a spouse that has some holding in Canada. Who's the right person to help us think about that, whether it's on the tax side, the estate planning, the financial side? And so really being very bespoke in that approach. But you're right that nearly, I think it's 85% of people that inherit money choose to switch the advisor that was managing that money or creating, serving up those taxes for the prior holder of those assets. And so we're key at being that inflection point resource for people as they think about the transition, both at that moment in time and giving them a better experience for hopefully the next several decades.
Yeah. I think one of the benefits of not necessarily being the first of any particular category in the market is that you learn from the predecessors. So if you look at kind of the general robo-advisor marketplace, there are those kind of early pioneers where they decided to go full self-directed and full automation. And then you have others that are a little bit going up more the kind of more affluent, a little bit older, like Personal Capital. And they're recognizing that there's still need for human touch. So I think your approach of combining the technology with the human touch, even for the Gen X, actually is a very important selling element. Because I think, many times we're not just looking to spit out answers. It's not like an IBM Watson. We don't want just the probability of certain expected result. We want to know what are all the possibilities and be able to educate in terms of, options 1 or 2 and why I should consider one or the other. So kind of tell us about your thinking process when you started this business model and what it is now, and how you think that your business will continue to transform and change, especially from a product roadmap.
Absolutely. And you alluded to robo-advisors. My co-founder, Katie, was the CMO of the largest robo-advisor in Europe. And she really came to the same conclusion that I had independently from having built another platform for top-tier advisors with better technology, which was, there's certain things that technology can solve end-to-end, buying a plane ticket, et cetera. For those more complex decisions, people, especially those in our core demographic of sort of that 30 to 50, still want to talk to someone they consider an expert in those areas. And so recognizing that and really building around that observation, while obviously capturing the wonderful value of technology in terms of the insight, the aggregation, mobile enablement, ease of all the pieces that we've come to expect and receive in a lot of places. I mean, one thing that I find really interesting about consumer financial services in most industries, whether it's healthcare, electronics, et cetera, the innovation tends to start at the top, very expensive, top of the market, and kind of trickle down. In this space, at least in the last 5 or 10 years, a lot of the innovations kind of come bottoms up. I think Robinhood and Betterment and others have really elevated expectations of what financial services can look like and how easy it can be to interact with them. And so taking that ease and functionality and visualization, but combining it with expertise, I think really is the secret sauce to building a great platform.
Yeah, terrific. Sounds good. My last question is, what was your greatest product or business failure and the lesson learned that you can share with others?
Sure. So I think, for us, and it speaks to some of the questions that you asked, the first version of the product had a lot of questions and then would lead to almost like a laundry list of here are the 30 things that we feel like there's value in you tackling, a sort of checkbox of the type of vertical and thing like that. And intellectually, it was very, accurate and honest, but it was overwhelming to people. And understanding that there are different levels of financial acumen and understanding in this space, and that you really have to deliver insights to people in a way that is understandable, quantifiable, digestible, and feels accurate. And so we continue to iterate sort of on that theme, on the personalization of the experience so that someone feels like this makes sense to them and is valuable to them, is really important, because a lot of financial services is about creating products and then trying to convince people that product is the right one for them. With the model that we have, we really want to feel like a bespoke service technology platform where whatever the need is, it's a different solution for you than it would be for a friend, than it would be for that person's colleague or parent, et cetera. And so finding the right way for the technology to embrace the diversity of the people side really is pretty important.
Yep. I think that's important, especially when it comes to mass personalization and still keeping the cost structure down as well. So today I've been joined by David Snider, CEO of Harness Wealth. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.